All right, welcome everybody. This is the first discussion in a 6-part series sponsored by our friends in Oakland at Port Labs, a home for product startups in the energy industry. This is the SunSpec 6-part webinar series. All right, welcome everyone. So like I said, this is the first discussion in our 6-part webinar series, and it's brought to you by SunSpec and also Port Labs. So today's webinar will cover key trends shaping the future of DER and solar and some of our takeaways from RE+. My name is Erin Mahan, and I am the Vice President of Membership and Regulatory Affairs at SunSpec Alliance. Today, the presenters will be myself and Dylan Tansey, SunSpec's Executive Director, as well as Tom Tansey, the CEO of DER Security Corp. So all SunSpec meetings are conducted in accordance with the SunSpec antitrust policy and intellectual property provisions defined in the SunSpec member agreement. You can find that agreement on our website. SunSpec strictly prohibits market participants and their employees who take part in these activities from using their participation as a forum for engaging in practices or communications that violate antitrust laws. Confidential or proprietary information should not be discussed in open session. Please contact us if you have any questions. On the agenda for today, we will be discussing key conversations from RE+, as well as the global standards momentum that we are seeing here at SunSpec. We will also announce some very exciting new things like SunSpec Modbus, as well as SunSpec DevKit and a SunSpec Alliance individual membership. We will give you some updates on our specifications and what to look forward to in 2026. All right, turning it over to you, Dylan.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Erin, and thanks everybody for joining us. Just a quick reminder before we dig into this material, please do keep yourself on mute to keep background noise to a minimum, and we are recording this session, so unless you want your face recorded, go ahead and keep your camera off as well. We will have time for questions at the end. You can also put your questions in the chat at any time, and we will address them either right in the moment, if it's on topic, or wait till the end to cover them all. So starting off, just coming back off of RE+ a couple weeks ago, we wanted to share some of the overall thoughts and insights and takeaways that we had from that opportunity. We had to speak with a ton of members there and stakeholders for the SunSpec Alliance. Number one, a really high-level takeaway, I was very impressed with the positive outlook and enthusiasm that I observed from not only SunSpec members, but everybody there at this show floor. We know that there's challenges for the industry, and this being the solar coaster that it is, there's frequently uncertainty, but my number one kind of high-level takeaway and vibe I got was really a high-level enthusiasm and optimism for the future of the DER industry. Even with any financial, federal financial incentives coming away, we're seeing a big push right now, just in these last few months, to get as many systems developed and connected as possible under the current regime. But like I said, a high degree of optimism that the DER industry is well positioned to continue to grow and thrive in the absence of financial incentives. It does shift a little bit, the business models and the structure of deals, but overall, projections continue to be high for the continued vibrancy of the DER industry.
Dylan, if I may interject, first of all, I'd like to introduce myself too. So I'm Tom Tansey, and CEO of DER Security, and many of you know me because I'm probably I guess I am the longest standing personal member of the SunSpec Alliance. And yes, Dylan and I are related for sure. But in any case, what I wanted to just add is, we had almost 40,000 people at RE+, and about this renewables advancing without federal incentives. For the renewables to compete without federal incentives would make us a unicorn in the energy field. Everything else is pretty highly supported by all types of incentives. And yet, given the resiliency and the adaptability of people in this industry, we heard many conversations about how we're going to get this done by further optimization and cost cutting on our own part, and still figure out how to make money, because obviously we have a tremendous advantage over, we in the renewables field have tremendous advantage over other forms. Fewer moving parts, frankly, higher reliability, lower cost of manufacturing, and lower cost of disposal actually at the end as well. So there's lots of great attributes that we have that are backing this up. I just wanted to make sure that we double click on that point. So back to you, Dylan.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And Tom will be providing color commentary throughout today's webinar. And I wanted to add on to that, we'll be digging into this throughout this this webinar, but a big driver for the optimism as well is the rapid expansion of demand on the U.S. grid and internationally as well, with the rise of AI data centers and so on. And with those comes enormous demand for energy, and DER and solar, stationary storage, etc., is the fastest way in the short term to get those loads serviced and into operation. So that's another really big driver. We'll talk more about that in this webinar. But that is a big driver for fueling this optimism, and yeah, for the continued vibrancy of the DER industry. So shifting gears a little bit, here is another big takeaway I had from RE Plus, speaking with our members, both the equipment and inverter manufacturers and integrators, EPP providers, etc., is that while SunSpec Modbus adoption is high, and when you go up to a booth, typically you end up talking to some salesperson, and in years past they would never know about protocols about SunSpec Modbus, but now with the prevalence and rollout of IEEE 1547 and the mandate for UL 1741 SB, virtually every single equipment manufacturer and their salespeople who don't usually know about these topics say, yes, we support SunSpec Modbus, and we use SunSpec Modbus to comply 1547 and achieve our UL 1741 SB mark. And we know that upwards of 80% of device manufacturers, that is true, use SunSpec Modbus to comply with that standard. And for those of you who don't know, IEEE 1547 is the U.S. national interconnection standard. Now it applies in all 50 states. And it includes a requirement for support for a standard communication interface and named SunSpec Modbus. Unfortunately, despite a high level of adoption, interoperability is still actually low, and we see that when we speak with integrators who still lament that they have to do customization work for integrating different equipment into their systems. And we know through lab testing that the cause of this is that UL 1741 SB testing alone does a poor job of protocol validation. And because that's just the kind of the checkbox that you need to get onto the approved equipment list, many device manufacturers left it at that and haven't gone through the additional necessary steps of doing full protocol validation. And at SunSpec, we have all the infrastructure and tools and necessary support to enable the industry to get over this hurdle and truly become interoperable. From the SunSpec certification programs based upon publicly freely available compliance and testing requirements and results reporting requirements, the available of multiple commercial test tools that not only are used for protocol testing and validation, but also use the protocols to enable test automation for not just testing that the communication interface works, but using that communication interface to automate the electrical, functional, and safety testing that's required. And oftentimes, well, always without automation, is very time consuming and expensive. As well as online courses available to not only to SunSpec members, but to the public through SunSpec Academy with multiple courses on implementing SunSpec Modbus. And finally, through membership and software tools. By engaging as a member of the SunSpec Alliance, we offer direct technical consulting and support, as well as tools like SunSpec Dashboard for manufacturers, implementers, and testers to do their initial ad hoc testing at very low barrier and cost. So everything is there to enable full compliance, protocol compliance and interoperability. But due to the lack of actual federal mandates to do the full protocol certification, what we're seeing is that though adoption is high, interoperability is still low. So this is a key challenge for the industry to overcome in 2026. The SunSpec is here to support as we strive towards that goal. The other takeaway that I had from many conversations at RA Plus was that this point about utility DERs moving from pilot to portfolio stages. And this is really focusing in on the IEEE 23.5 deployment. As many of you know, California Rule 21 has mandated CSIP, the Common Smart Inverter Profile, which is the DER profile, 23.5. That's used in California, but also internationally as well. This has been mandated for quite a few years now. I think back in 2019 or so is when we first started certifying products to this device, and it's been a requirement to get onto California approved equipment list. And in that entire time, we've kind of been looking to our crystal ball and trying to figure out when the utilities will actually begin to use the interface to connect to DDR systems and command and control them. And I think that it's finally actually happening. We're getting a lot of signals that it's happening here in 2026, not just with CSIP, where we're seeing a rollout, specific rollouts at PG&E, SCE, PPL, and also in Europe, which Aaron will talk about here in a bit. And Australia has obviously been leapfrogged the US with its 23.5 deployment as well. But particularly in California, where it's been a long process where people have been looking, watching, and waiting, stretching their head when the utilities are going to start using it, we're seeing a lot of signals that it's happening, and it's going to be happening in 2026. Not just with CSIP, but also with the SAE V2G J3072 standard, which uses IEEE 23.5. SunSpec has recently just marked version 1.0 of that 20.5 profile approved. Actually, it was the week of RA Plus when we had that work group meeting. Version 1.0 was voted to be promoted to approved status, and we're now immediately beginning on version 2.0 of that 20.5 profile, as well as test procedures. And we're already seeing planned deployments and rollouts of that profile, that 20.5 profile as well. And some good news there, we are seeing where reference to this SAE J3072 profile is included, such as UL 741 SC, that they have learned the lessons from the SB rollout, and they are including a mandate for protocol compliance and third-party certifications. So this is a huge priority for SunSpec to roll out a 20.5 V2G J3072 certification program. And again, we're seeing a lot of urgency and from a desire for deployment there as well. So that's exciting news for many of our members who have invested their time and energy over the years into this standard and technology. Lastly, what came up is this FEOC question, which stands for Foreign Entity of Control. Did I get that right? I believe I did. Foreign Entity of Control, which deals with the Foreign Entity of Concern. Sorry, thought I got that last word correct. And so it deals with supply chain issues and the allowability of allowing equipment and parts from certain foreign entities of concern. So this is a question that obviously has been on the top of mind for many for years now. We've seen in the past for a short time where Chinese components were unilaterally banned, which caused a significant disruption. That policy is not yet in place, but there's this open hovering question of if some of these policies are going to return. and what the impact of those will be. Ultimately, it is advisable for everybody to diversify their supply chain, and that does seem to be the direction people are already doing in a proactive way in order to mitigate this risk. It does, however, emphasize, put a point on the necessity of cybersecurity practices in general, not just in your supply chain but also in your equipment design and network design.
Hey, Dylan, I see a question came up about the FIAC and battery energy storage, but I recommend that we table that one until we get to the Q&A at the end. I think we'll have more to say about that topic.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Definitely.
So,
it's a huge question at RE+.
Mm-hmm.
Will it go into law? And have our member companies changed where they build their equipment, or have they expedited purchasing?
Right. Yeah. Well, hey, we're about 1/3 in, so I think we need to pick up the pace. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to talk to you about some good news for SunSpec members, and that is load growth in the United States. The numbers here are pretty staggering. 78% growth by 2050 is equivalent to building a second US grid on top of the one we already have. The drivers are super familiar. There's EV adoption and electrification of buildings and the exponential rise of data centers. But we aren't ready. This interconnection logjam is solar and storage capacity that is ready on paper, but it is stuck in queues and bottlenecks in the process. That means technical evaluations are slow, or grid readiness is not there. And this is a reminder that technology is racing faster than some of our institutions have adapted yet. But this is why SunSpec standards matter. Interconnection studies often fail because of uncertainty about how devices will behave or how they will communicate. And DER integration and interoperability will be critical as multiple high load growths come online simultaneously. Standards reduce a lot of uncertainty, and they are the grease that lets the machine turn faster. So good news for SunSpec certified members. Moving into some flexibility policies, SunSpec's mission is to help expand the market, and regulators are listening. So across the United States, flexibility is the hype word right now. In 2024 alone, we see 38 states and policies related to VPPs and DER aggregation. So that's a tidal shift, and regulators are not debating whether DERs provide grid services. They are debating how to structure it and make it happen. So this growing interest in demand response and demand flexibility includes BESS, battery energy storage systems, and virtual power plants and flexible data centers. That means that new markets are opening, particularly balcony solar, which is very exciting, and I will talk to you about it in just a moment, EV charging infrastructure, flexible load management, and distributed generation to offset demand surges. Suddenly, demand response is not a side program for peak shaving. It is becoming part of capacity planning. And success in this field hinges on interoperability. So in US interconnection news, we are also witnessing how these new load drivers are reshaping interconnection policy. So data centers are no longer static. They are now considered flexible resources, but only if they can communicate securely with the grid operators. So that's both a challenge and an opportunity. In the past, independent system operators, ISOs, have developed their own approaches to modeling DER impacts and managing reliability. But demand growth and the surge of distributed assets does not fit within those boundaries. So you can see in the bottom left corner there, Governor Newsom and the Western states are seeking greater harmonization between ISOs. And this will limit the islands of incompatibility. And this is also a sign of a shift towards greater coordination and standardization across the United States. At the other end of the spectrum, we see balcony solar expanding. It's gaining popularity in states like New Hampshire and Vermont, and Utah, and legislation is enabling thousands of plug-in balcony units. I think it was just yesterday, New York introduced the Sunny Act, and that's legislation to make balcony and plug-in solar simpler by exempting small systems from interconnection and securing tape. So balcony solar is a big win for renters and apartment dwellers and other households who cannot access this traditional rooftop solar method. It's micro-scale generation, and it is disruptive. So the clear message across all of this is that standards compliance is your entry ticket to the largest growth opportunity in decades. And whether you are a hyperscale data center or a family installing balcony PV kit, the ability to plug into the grid depends on whether your technology is speaking the grid's language. And that's what SunSpec is here to help you with. So moving on to load growth in Europe. Europe is facing a similar surge, but with very unique complications. This 2024 EMBER report, for which I have the photo here, underscores that limited interoperability and lack of standardization are problems. So the extreme diversity of DSOs makes scaling solutions very difficult. And each DSO wants customized requirements, but those requirements rarely scale across borders. So this has pretty direct consequences. Developers are finding themselves navigating several sets of interconnection requirements, and they're forced to build variants of the same product for different markets. The result here is delay and inefficiency and a lost opportunity. So what Europe needs is harmonization, a single interoperable standard that can sit beneath these national regulations and provide some confidence across markets. And that's where SunSpec standards come into play. They're already adopted globally. The SunSpec standards are already adopted globally, and they can provide a unifying backbone for Europe. So this will help us avoid fragmentation and also unlock the scale needed to meet 2030 and 2040 and 2050 net zero goals in Europe. Encouragingly, we are seeing signs of alignment. Countries are beginning to adopt IEEE 2030.5 based approaches. I have a few different policy frameworks listed here. Germany's 14A, the UK's G100, and Sweden's TOTEX model. All of these focus on greater visibility from the DSOs into device level operations. Also, the EU-funded Interstore project is pointing in this 2030.5 direction. Each of these represents not only a technical step, but also a policy shift. So Germany's 14A explicitly mandates flexible DER integration. The UK's G100 addresses export management. And Sweden's TOTEX incentivizes long-term planning. So Interstore is bringing stakeholders together under a Horizon 2020 European Union project to develop these scalable pathways for interoperability. And this is where SunSpec is playing a big role. IEEE 2030.5 is more than just a theory. It is a proven field-tested standard, and Australia has already used it to integrate more than 10,000 systems. By adopting IEEE 2030.5, Europe is signaling its intent to align with this global language.
Aaron, I'd like to make a couple comments. I think you're missing at least a 0 off the Australian deployment at this point. But aside from that, so I really only got familiar with the Interstore initiative within the last year. And when I read the headlines for it, I was a little bit concerned that, oh, maybe Europe is going to fragment that standard because of the tagline they say, 2030.5 over NATS. Now, what I learned is that actually the 2030.5 protocol, they're using it in full cloth, end to end. But what they're referring to about this NATS protocol is this is for potentially for the local area, and it's specifically to integrate legacy devices, those devices that were installed prior to smart inverters coming into play here. So that's encouraging, because this initiative allows for more DERs to come into play. It provides a high-speed message bus to handle more of the real-time stuff while maintaining the integrity of the core standard, which means that for manufacturers, that the CSIP certification that you get will apply equally well in Europe as well.
Exactly. Another win for those who are certified by SunSpec and under CSIP 2030.5. I think manufacturers and DSOs are going to benefit quite a lot from this harmonized approach. And now Dylan will talk to you about what's going on in India.
Great, yeah.
Hey, before we do that, though, I see John Holmes raised his hand about the previous topic, I believe.
Yeah, Aaron,
John?
thank you for that. Hi, Aaron. Thank you for that summary. I just wanted to mention that I know we're talking mostly about solar and storage today, but the automotive sector and bidirectional charging is also accelerating adoption globally. We've seen OCA introduce OCPP 2.1, which is effectively a duplication of 2030.5, but trained specifically on the dispatch of bidirectional inverters for vehicle charging and discharging. And I'll just say that this is full circle, because fundamentally, substation automation under 61850 is where this began, and the ability for these systems to be grid friendly is kind of the core of this objective. And seeing how this can be accomplished across all DER classes is really important. And I think that's been some of the fragmented focus has kind of diffused the opportunity for utilities to integrate into the DERM systems that would otherwise control and maybe uniformly dispatch these resources for grid stability.
Thank you, John. Great.
Yeah, completely agree. And thanks for that, John. Yeah, for sure. There's a bit of a fragmentation, not just, country to country, but vertical by vertical. DER and vehicle companies aren't always working hand in glove. So it's important to have, I think, good industry associations, not to self-promote plenty, where industry organizations like SunSpec, where different stakeholders can come together and talk to each other and develop common solutions. So moving on, but still continuing to look outward to the global market. Although, so as Aaron kind of just covered and we've talked about already, one of the biggest drivers for continued growth of the DR industry is demand. It's demand for energy. We are also seeing demand being, growth being driven by federal approaches as well. India, in particular, recently announced an initiative to deploy 10 million residential rooftop solar systems in the coming years. And in order to do that, they have formally adopted IEEE 1547 into their national interconnection standard, which is IS 18968. So this is adopted. The Indian National Interconnection Standard has adopted IEEE 1547, which represents another rapidly expanding market for SunSpec members to address and sell more equipment. Definitely, many of our members, the largest providers in India, are already SunSpec members. This definitely represents, for those who've done a good job of implementing the protocols and getting SunSpec Modbus 1547 certified, to leapfrog their competition in serving this very quickly growing Indian market as well. And so we are working with ISGF, and have completed a webinar just a few weeks ago, where this program to install 10 million new rooftop systems that are going to be 1547 compliant and use SunSpec Modbus. Completed a webinar on that just a few weeks ago. I encourage anybody who's curious to learn more, but check out the recording on our website. Another fantastic opportunity for companies to grow their business there in India. using the exact same existing proven technology. Continuing to look abroad, so talking a little bit again about Australia's IEEE 23.5 rollout and DER deployment. So the number that Aaron referenced before, this 10,000 numbers that have been aggregated using 23.5, is actually, that's a specific South Australia Power Network project that we've been in communication with them about, where they're using 23.5 over the wide area to connect with the DER systems and using SunSpec Modbus to connect directly to the local systems. So fantastic use case and application of the technology and standards. And I also want to highlight that some of the, with CSIP Oz, some of the CSIP Oz features and functionality are actually being adopted here in the US as well, with SCE announcing a project where they've adopted some of the non-CSIP features, but the CSIP Oz features that deal with net metering to delimit, export, and telemetry. So this highlights the continued deployment of 23.5 using these standards to connect and integrate systems into the grid. Also points to the importance of everybody everybody participating in the SunSpec 23.5 CSIP test procedure work group, which has been going on for a couple of weeks now, actually a couple of months now, where California Rule 21 has been revised, or has been moved. California Rule 21 has not been revised. The CPUC has begun the process of updating to CSIP to comply with the 23.5 2023 version, and has tasked IEEE with developing the update to CSIP. That's happening in the IEEE 23.5.1 work group, and SunSpec is tasked with updating the CSIP test procedures. Our intention here is to develop profile agnostic 23.5 test procedures so that we can quickly roll out certification programs, not just for 23.5 CSIP, but 23.5 V2G, 23.5 CSIP Oz, and there's a metering profile that's about ready to be marked approved as well. Because we are working concurrently with the 23.5.1 work group, where CSIP itself is being revised, I do anticipate a number of interim releases where we address the SAE J3072 profile, and also address these additional CSIP Oz functions that are being adopted here in the US as well. So this is a very important activity. I encourage everybody who has a stake in this to come and participate in that SunSpec work group. Another new recent kind of continuing on the SunSpec work group training with new standards and test procedures development. In the SunSpec Modbus work group, we have recently released the test version of the secure SunSpec Modbus specification, where we adapted the Modbus TCP standard in order to encrypt the SunSpec Modbus traffic when communicated over the public internet. You can see a couple scenarios where this is possible. By convention, historically, Modbus has not been secured, but because it's generally, it's primarily the local area communication network. It's not usually over the the public internet, but we're seeing more interest in developing those types of applications, which makes this development of secure SunSpec Modbus critical to support these new types of rollouts or deployments or use cases of the standard. So that's a very exciting development. That secure SunSpec Modbus specification is now in test status. It's available to the public right now in the specification section of the SunSpec website. It is currently in test status, so we are taking comment and working on finalizing that spec in the SunSpec Modbus work group. So this public comment and review period will be going. It's a 45-day review period that will conclude on November 8th. So regardless if you're a member, I recommend that you download the specification from the website and give it a read. And if you have any comments or concerns or discover any issues, please go ahead and you can, even without joining, you can enter a comment on the website, fill in a form, or you can come and join the Alliance as a member and join that work group as a member where we're meeting on a weekly basis every Wednesday at 8 a.m. As we resolve the public comments on the SunSpec Modbus spec. And also we're beginning work on SunSpec Modbus client test procedures. For the past more than a decade, since the beginning of SunSpec, much of the standardization has been focused on the server side, standardizing the quote-unquote Modbus maps. And there has been a gap to have a set of compliance criteria on the client side, which would enable, one client with one SunSpec driver to be able to connect to and communicate with any SunSpec Modbus device. So these types of clients have existed for a long time, and SunSpec has provided one to our members in the form of SunSpec dashboard for a very long time. There just hasn't, to this point, been a way of validating compliance, protocol compliance, that can, a set of compliance criteria for the SunSpec Modbus client side. So that's the other activity, and there is a draft spec that has been proposed, and we're working on that in parallel as well in the SunSpec Modbus work group.
Great. Dylan Hannes Knopf of SMA has raised his hand. Yeah. Hannes? If you'd like to speak, please unmute yourself.
If not, I'll continue on.
Okay, sounds good. Maybe, okay, hopefully he'll come back.
Okay.
All right.
So continuing on SunSpec Modbus development, there has been an open source initiative running for a while now, and one of the results of that is this new open source tool called SunSpec Modbus Dev Kit. We actually previewed it a few weeks ago on another webinar where we invited a few open source developers to demo how they're using SunSpec Modbus in their own local, in their own home systems, and demo this new open source toolkit. So this tool is going to be freely available with a paid version as well. So in the free version, there will be a certain amount of DER simulators that can be spun up based on either a PIX document or a device, or on a JSON device file. It has an improved model viewer as well. If you're familiar with SunSpec Modbus, currently you go through this like Excel spreadsheet is the human readable version, but there's been this push to develop a much cleaner and user-friendly model viewer. So that'll be really helpful. It'll be freely available, and will also enable more developers to come in and participate in the SunSpec open source initiative, and working with the SunSpec Modbus Dev Kit. So like I said, we previewed it a few weeks ago. This is going to be publicly available within the next week or two. We'll have, as Aaron said at the beginning, this is the first part of a six-part webinar series. And when it comes time for Vish Ganti, who's been the leader for the SunSpec open source initiative, to lead his webinar in this series, there will be a deeper dive into this toolkit, and how to access it and use it and participate in the open source initiative. So that's an exciting new development as well to be aware of. So keep an eye out on new announcements in the next week or two to learn when that's available.
And another exciting part of the dev kit is anyone who is a member or anyone who purchases our new individual membership will also be acknowledged on GitHub as part of the SunSpec open source initiative. So another big announcement today is that we are opening up a SunSpec Alliance individual membership. We are doing this to increase workgroup access and dev kit accessibility for individual developers. We're doing this because innovation often begins at the edges, and we want to make sure that individual engineers and innovators, being academics, researchers, hobbyists, and open source developers, can join the Alliance and benefit from the workgroup participation and the dev kit. So this will be a $1,000 annual membership, and it will be open exclusively to individuals and not to companies or corporations. So back to you, Dylan, for the specification updates.
Sure. So I think I've pretty much covered most of this. So the completed updates, we've released the version 1.0 of this SunSpec 20.5 V2G AC profile for the SAE J3072 profile. That's a mouthful. It's the 20.5 V2G profile. The version 1.0 has been marked approved for implementation. We're already working on version 2.0, and we're working on the test procedures concurrently as well. This is the urgency is built up on this because it is included in UL 1741 SC, where protocol validation and certification will be mandatory. In addition, the secure SunSpec Modbus, I just talked about that. It's currently in test status, and it will be running a 45-day public review and comment period. And as the work group is continuing to meet to resolve comments every single week, so that we can ideally, all things going well, have this completed and approved by November 8th. So next up on the development roadmap, we have the 20.5 metering profile, which has been in test status for a while now. I think we're ready to wrap that up and mark it approved. Like I mentioned, the SunSpec Modbus compliance and test criteria is in draft status, and we're actively working on that in the SunSpec Modbus work group as well. I already mentioned V2G AC 2.0 and the SunSpec device cybersecurity certification program as well. We have a version of that that's in test status that we intend to wrap up final review and mark approved here in the coming months as well. So please do come in and join the Alliance and come and participate in these important standards development initiatives.
Question with regards to, can you go back to the previous screen?
Mm-hmm.
So that the 2030.5 is in conjunction with the UL 1741 development, and that thing is tied together cleanly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Sweet.
UL.
Please continue.
Yeah, UL 1741 SC kind of learned the lesson from the SB rollout and includes the language that mandates third-party protocol validation.
Nice. So getting this operational software into a system and then compliant with UL 1741 as well as those two different certification process?
Correct. So because the test procedures for doing protocol validation, they're already created
Right.
pretty much with the SunSpec CSIP test procedures. We do need to do some updates to address some of the variants between CSIP and the V2G profile.
Right.
But yeah, there's a clear need based on what we observed with the SB rollout that there needs to be full, complete third-party protocol validation as well in order to ensure that the interoperability is there. So
is that going to be you guys, or who's the third party going to be that's doing this evaluation?
SunSpec is definitely going to raise its hand and volunteer.
Cool.
I'd like to add a couple of comments to address Ralph's question.
Mm-hmm.
And one is that the UL 1741 certification, basically it encapsulates the IEEE 1547 standard, and specifically the test procedure being IEEE 1547.1. Mm-hmm. So that standard tends to evolve and change when the IEEE 1547 standard is updated, and there's an update in the works. In addition to that, the work taking place on like the SC version for bidirectional charging and so forth is where the introduction of language around protocol validation comes into play, and then so these standards don't play favorites. They just, they say basically, a qualified entity needs to do this type of certification. Certainly SunSpec is one of those, and we pioneered this process, but it's not exclusive to SunSpec, could be other parties as well.
Yeah. That's right.
So are you going to develop a list of vendors or agencies or engineers that you feel could help? For example, let's say Rouse Company's going to build the next generation DC fast charger and incorporate the UL spec and plus IEEE spec we're talking about here, and then needs to go in for certification. Do you have engineers?
Well, so
sure.
actually, we work with a network of authorized test labs. These are the same hurdles you're already familiar with,
Yes.
like UL and Intertech,
Yeah.
CSA, TUV,
Yeah.
SGS, Bureau Veritas, etc.
Right.
So we intentionally, we started working with this network of authorized test labs at the beginning when we started doing CSIP certifications in order to enable companies to get all their testing done at once, not just the protocol testing, but their electrical, functional, safety testing done all at the same time. So you will be able to get turnkey testing and validation by going through our network of authorized test labs.
Fantastic. I like hearing that. That means this is really clean. I don't have to go to CSA to get one thing done and someplace else to get the validation of the communications. Very good. Oh, thank you for your time. I appreciate you answering the question.
Sure. I guess there is one additional point of clarity. So SunSpec, it is a separate certification. The way that SunSpec certification works is the test labs, our authorized test labs, perform the testing and submit the results to us for validation for compliance to the standard. So all the testing gets done in one place. There's a third-party validation and a review of the protocol test procedures. So it is a separate SunSpec certification mark as well that you will get as well. But all the testing can be done turnkey.
Thanks for the clarity. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, great. Continuing on, I want to highlight some of the important partnerships that SunSpec has been cultivating and recognize their efforts as well. Starting with the MESA Alliance, which has adopted the SunSpec Modbus as part of their larger communication architecture. That's being included into IEEE 1815.2. So I think this is it's been a very fruitful relationship, and it continues to drive the adoption and deployment of SunSpec Modbus as well. Also highlighting our partnership with KNX, which is a protocol used for load and home energy management, and we partnered with them in order to map the SunSpec Modbus models to the KNX protocol. And so you can see in this graph here that it's basically a mapping and application note for having a KNX device and SunSpec Modbus client paired together, so that the KNX system, home energy management system, can control not only the loads but also the local generation as well. And finally, the partnership with ISGF, the India Standards Initiative, where they've adopted IEEE 1547, and we're working with them to support the rollout of their standards-based network and their more than 10 million rooftop solar systems that are going to be developed and deployed. So with that, I want to just highlight what the next items on the this webinar series are, and then I think after that we'll go ahead and open it up to questions. So we have a great lineup of speakers arranged for you. The next one will be Dr. Eric Fettel, presenting on October 14th, so just about 2 weeks. And then we're going to keep a pretty steady drumbeat of a webinar in the series, basically every 2 weeks. We'll hear from other experts like Vish Ganti, the Security Corp. Like I said, we'll talk about this open source, SunSpec Modbus open source initiative. Jan Rippengale of Blue Banyan talking about the Orange Button initiative. Steve Kang and James Mader of Quality Logic talking about the standards deployment for V2G in particular. This will follow on from the V2G forum that's happening October 21st. And Damon Kocher of SecureG, our PKI infrastructure provider, who's going to present on not only integrating PKI into your production line, but also on crypto agility, which is a strategy that people should be implementing now in order to adapt as quantum computing emerges as a component of cybersecurity. And we have a number of upcoming live events as well. So you've got, by registering for today's webinar, you'll be put on the invite automatically to these following webinars in this series. So please come back and join us next time as well. Aaron, if do you want to lead us and give any final comments, and then want to lead us on the open Q&A?
Sure, just a final comment. You can listen to Tom give a presentation at the V2G forum along with some of our other partners at Quality Logic. And we hope to see you at Intersolar North America and also Intersolar Europe. We will be at the EV Charging Summit as well. So please stop by our booth and have a chat with us there. Like Dylan said, our next presenter will be Eric Fettel, and he will present about power, policy, and progress, understanding the next phase of the energy transition. I am very excited to hear what Eric has to say. Now, let's open it up for questions. Anyone, you can submit a question in the comments, or you can raise your hand.
Yeah, so the first question that we had, Aaron, was from Ariwa, and it was, what is the effect for FEOC on battery storage?
Great. Yeah, let me take that one. So I think that this FEOC thing is certainly a very much a hot button topic, and it's the thing that drives the most uncertainty in the market ever. About battery energy storage, I think battery energy storage is in a good place, and why do I say this? For the United States, the buildup of AI data centers is a very important initiative, and it's one where if the data center operators don't bring their own power, they're not going to be operating. Okay, and so that power, it could be renewable, it could be fossil fuel based, so forth. Irrespective of what the fuel source is, it needs batteries, right? Because of the need for power quality and the like. The data center, even with fossil fuels, is going to be a major driver for battery energy storage. And so I think economics trumps everything else in this case, especially when it comes to these types of national policies. So I think we're in good shape there. Furthermore, I think despite the fact that the current administration has been quite negative on renewable energy, it's really hard to see how the nation's energy requirements, power requirements get met without an all hands on deck approach. So we'll see, but I'm very bullish on this.
Yeah, just to add on as well, at RE+, I heard a lot of discussions about expedited purchasing. So people are not only getting certified right now, but they're also expediting purchasing for the future before FEOC comes into play, if it comes into play at all.
Great, thanks so much. So moving on to the last question here from Nashvinder. Thank you for the kind comments. His questions are around, with the growth being 78% by 2050, do we have any insights to share on how the distribution and transmission infrastructure is expected to meet the demand surge? And secondarily, how much of this demand surge will be met with DERs versus centralized resources?
Sure. Again, if you don't mind, I'll leave that one off. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's 78% demand surge. I mean that's an estimate. I think it's probably a low estimate, really, in terms of the power that will be needed. But in terms of how the distribution grid and transmission grid will react, I would say that well, the distributed energy resources play a major part, certainly in the distribution grid, where they form an alternative to building new wires. And so by activating the capabilities of these smart inverters using remote data communication techniques, a great amount of what would have otherwise been a capital improvement can be sourced from existing resources. With regard to transmission, there are certainly many initiatives now in this country to strengthen transmission. That's also going to be needed, because the biggest part of the renewables buildup is centralized systems, but the distribution system, I think, is far more critical because of the trend towards the co-location of generation and the use of that energy. Hey, so I'd like to add a couple other comments while I've got the mic here. And geez, balcony solar. This is going to be huge. Okay, maybe as big as rooftop residential solar in terms of the fraction that it'll contribute, and it opens up an opportunity for demand response programs if these systems are outfitted with data communications. So balcony solar it's a thing. The U.S. is going to bring it on. And also the other comment I want to make is that for India, cybersecurity and interoperability are front and center. These are the driving factors about their overall adoption rate. So that's it. We got 1 minute left. Any other?
Yeah, I have one more question if you guys want to try to get to it.
Sure.
Quickly, is the EPRI common file format consistent with the mandatory SunSpec Modbus registers?
Well, I guess in a word, yes, absolutely, because we had a major hand in developing that format. Now it's independent of it. I mean, so where the relationship is in the semantic meaning of the data points that are covered in that common file format.
All right, we're right at time.
You want to try one more from Daniel?
Daniel, go ahead. Daniel, you got your hand raised. If you have a question, feel free to.
Am I audible?
Yep.
You are.
Yes. Excellent. It seems that data communications are ultra critical as we move forward, yet I hear nobody talking about how data communications will take place when the power is out. The most critical time to use this distributed energy resources are during a power failure, yet that's not at all, nobody's even thinking or talking about it. Why?
Well, I would say tune into a future SunSpec webinar on this topic when we talk more about microgrids, because I think this is a part of the answer to your question, is that independently powering these data communication systems is part of the whole microgrid movement.
Absolutely. Lots of conversation lately about
Thank
local
you.
solutions.
Excellent. I just want to start raising the conversation.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Thank you, everybody. If you have additional questions, you can reach out to us at membership@sunspec.org or support@sunspec.org. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you in our next webinar.
Great job, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
So long.
Thank you.